All right, so time for a trade day recap. It's Thursday, February 5th. It is the day before NFP, so that's important, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But I'm up only 1.5 hour. Where is it? Right there, 1.5 hour on the day, which I'll take it. It's not the 3 hour that I aim for, but I'll explain why that is here in just a second. So let's dive into the charts, starting with I'll start with the bias and kind of what I was looking for, and then we'll get into the trade. So here we are on the daily chart on MNQ, NASDAQ futures. Now, overall, I was bearish on the day. And the reason why is we had this inversion fair value gap from earlier in the week on Tuesday. And the daily candle traded up into it and rejected from consequent encroachment right there, and then closed back below this candle. And then here we have this is Wednesday, closing below these lows after sweeping this liquidity here. And so while I might be interested in a potential reversal from this candle, we could see it reversed off this daily fair value gap right there. When we woke up this morning, this current day candle was already down here below this volume imbalance, and I think even below this previous day low right in here. So this big black candle was right about where my mouse cursor is this morning, pre 9:30. So that kind of told me if this liquidity sweep wasn't enough, we were coming back down for this volume imbalance right here. And that's actually labeled wrong. There's a volume imbalance. And so then I had this is my draw on liquidity for today, which was these lows, this low right there. And ultimately, I do think, depending on the reaction we see right in this zone, I do think that this low is on the table. So bearish bias. We look at the 4 hour chart here. We can see this 2 a.m. candle, 6 a.m. candle, and we have bearish order flow. Obviously, the 6 a.m. candle pushed through this 4 hour for value gap, closed below. So telling me, even though we swept this low right here, probably going to see lower prices. Same thing on the 1 hour. So the 1 hour, this is the 9 o'clock candle. This hadn't happened yet. I wanted to see the 1 hour trade up into this fair value gap and reject and continue lower. And I wanted to short from this level right in there. So, and then on the 15-minute chart, pretty much the same thing on the 15-minute chart. What we can see here is this is the 9:30 candle right where my cursor is. And so we had this giant fair value gap above. Here's 12 a.m. and open. So we had lots of targets to the upside. So we swept this previous day low, and then we had this giant fair value gap that was unmitigated. We had midnight open, and then here was also the regular trading hour open, and then the new day opening gap. So there also was lots of targets to the upside to suggest that we wanted to see it trade at least partially into the regular trading hours gap here, and then reject down a little bit further from there. So kind of with that in mind, I was looking for shorts overall today. However, we go here to the 1 minute chart here on NQ, and this blue line here, 9:30 open, and we can see the previous day low, and then the current New York AM high and the New York AM low are the relevant levels that are on this chart. But as I said, I was expecting some kind of like uh, price to trade up into this zone up in here and then reject further. We had these equal highs sitting right there, relative equal highs. And so that was kind of what I was imagining, what I would want to see happen. And so if we start replaying here, you can see that this next candle is the open right there. And it slammed down and it took liquidity, these two candles here. So we had this sell side sweep. There was a 1 hour SMT starting to form, so it wasn't confirmed. There could have been another SMT, but I didn't check. And then we had this next candle, and it looked like it wanted to close over this inversion fair value gap. If it wanted to invert this gap here, I was interested in going long right here, kind of thing. And then there's plenty of room to this initial break even, or this first internal high right here, second internal high, and then obviously these equal highs way up there. So there's a little bit of room to work, but we can see a strong rejection from that fair value gap. So wasn't too excited about that. At this point, obviously, I'm kind of trading against my bias, but I'm going with the narrative. I'm seeing that, yes, order flow is bearish, but with this particular sweep here, if it wanted to come up and manipulate up into this zone, there was enough room for me to get into a long trade before getting into a short trade. So we saw this next candle close down low here, not very convincing for anything. And then this candle happened, which kind of changed everything. So after this candle, I was looking at this like, oh, okay, I'm not interested in anything, or I probably wouldn't expect to see anything. But then this candle went and raged all the way up into here and, formed this breaker right here, a bullish breaker. And now with these candles here, sometimes like this one's almost a little too big and it closed down in there. Right back here, probably just would have marketed in. But in this case here, I wanted to see some kind of retest down and back into the breaker um, before marketing in. So the next candle closed. This one comes down and retests this initial first presented fair value gap, which we can see this green box right in here. So we had a first presented fair value gap, which gave me a little bit more of a bullish confirmation. Again, I'm overall bearish, but I could see this going up here. And one quick thing to note is this candle swept this high right here. And so because of that sweep, I could also see it closing below this first presented fair value gap and then ripping for more sell side delivery, the initial bias anyways. So once I saw this sweep of this high right here, then I became a little more cautious because that's all it could have wanted before dumping. So play forward just a little bit. And now once I saw price react down in here and I went down to the 30-second chart. Once I saw the strong rejection here on this candle and this close above this order block right in here, this is an order block. At that point, I was willing to put some risk on. So I marketed in on this candle right here on the 30-second chart. And I had, I think, my stop right below there. And now going back to the 1-minute chart, I already entered on that candle. So then here, this candle rips higher. I think my target's somewhere up in there. For sure, I was going to reconsider what I was doing at this equal high. If it was kind of slowing down at this equal high, I was going to probably take profits. If it continued ripping like this, if we got some nice distribution candles, I was going to see how far I could let it ride. Maybe it wants to go up to midnight open. But anyways, let's keep going forward. So here with this candle, came back down in, tested this fair value gap. I'm like, cool. I really don't want to see price come back any further than that. This red line also represents the area in which I would expect to see a short trade. So with that in mind, I was pretty cautious around this area. I'm not cautious. I was already break even at the trade at this point, but ready to take profits early and not expect my full 3R because of this zone being where I was expecting price to reverse from. And then what we see now is this candle right there. Oh, I forgot to mention, I trailed my stop. Once this candle closed way up in here, this was a super bullish candle. I trailed my stop to, I think, right here. So this was my break-even level on my trade. And then I got smacked out on that candle right there. So that was like a 1.5R. And what we see happen, and this is, to be expected, is price then pushes back up and then starts to just kind of accumulate near the rejection level. So my 3R, I think, would have been a little bit more like this. Any which way, I probably would have been stopped out at a partial. Let's take a look. I think there was one more stop on. Yep. So I might have gotten 3R if I just would have followed my rules say to keep it at break even. So I guess I kind of bent my rules by trailing my stop. But I also had a reason to. I wasn't just scared and wanting to get out of the trade. I knew this was a zone where it could potentially reject. And it would be one thing if it flew through it, and it would be another thing if it wanted to consolidate around through the in the zone. And just as this trade consolidated, in an upwards pattern, it very well, and especially being more on the bearish side, it could have consolidated in a downward pattern kind of thing, continually just grinding towards my break-even stop loss. So those are the reasons why I decided to trail it. And then we can exit replay here. And then throw on my, why is it just showing me that everywhere I click? So we can see it long on this candle, and then I got stopped out in this candle here. And now I'm pleased with that. I didn't have a trade setup for a short here, which obviously this was the move, this was the manipulation, and then this was the distribution, which is exactly what I was expecting. But for me, I really didn't have a trade setup in this. I don't really take inversions like this that have a whole bunch of price action consolidating in them. It's just not my thing. They don't tend to, in my experience, I don't tend to do too well when price looks like this. So I didn't even have a short setup, and I would have just sat there and watched price all day. So yeah, that's a review of today's trade. I think. Oh, right. One thing I was gonna mention was why today was important. Today's Thursday before NFP, non-farm payroll. And in my experience in tracking non-farm payroll week, one of the things I've noticed is as the days go on from Monday through Friday, every day gets lower and lower probability. So when I look historically, Mondays are by far my best trading days on NFP week. I can trade them just fine. Tuesdays are about half, uh, tend to return about half of what the Mondays do, and then it just kind of halves from there and there and there. Thursday is the day where I'm up like on average 1 R. So it's not a day I'm willing to risk big, and if it's clean enough, I'll take it. But if it's not clean, like if price looked like this down in here, I would have just walked away this morning. But and these three candles right here kind of made me start to feel like it. But once I saw this candle distribute, then I was okay with getting into a trade, thinking that it might be an okay day. And in the end, it ended up being an okay day. The bulls got fed, and then the bears got fed too, if you had a model in here, which I didn't. But anyways, that's just what I wanted to say about NFP. So yeah, that sums up this quick little trade recap. I live stream every day, so if you want to come see live, come join and hang out. That would be wonderful. And I'll see y'all later.